Richard Vobes, welcome back.
Thank
How are
you.
you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Very excited at the moment. Lots of things going on in my life, big changes, um, including the book and the land and everything else. And we're going into winter, so or autumn and then winter. So yeah, but I'm very well, thank you.
So everything you've been planning and working on for the last 12 months has arrived within a few weeks of each
It's
other,
all come
haven't
at
it?
once.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the
all come at
problem.
once. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so a
yeah.
year in the making and your book is now here and your stock's arrived.
As you can see behind me, the studio that I used to appear in, which was all very nice, and I've had to take that apart because I'm not doing the interviews at the moment. And it's now storage to something like 44 boxes of books. And because this is just the first print run, I'm hoping that there'll be another one, but I had to sort of take a punt on how many to print because at the moment it's only available through me, and I dare say we'll talk about the reasons for it. But yes, here it is, a solid book with a dust cover and a lovely stitching and gluing and all the stuff that you expect from a hardback book.
So you've now got what did you order? Did you order about 1,000 copies? Is that right?
Yes, I've got 1,000 copies, which I paid for up front, gambling that somebody somewhere might be interested in reading the nonsense that comes out of the pen of me. So um, it's yeah, it is a bit of a gamble, and of course it's a worry because people may turn around and say it's a load of old rubbish. I don't know what what have you written? You can't string a line together. So you never know, do you, until you've done it a bit. You've got two books out and the one on the way. Your confidence must be much higher now, knowing that people do like what you do and they are prepared to pay for it, pay for a second one as well.
Yeah, I think when the first one came out, as you're in the same situation as you're finding that each time someone says that they want to buy a copy and they want to read it, you're almost taken aback. And you think,
Yes,
wow, people want to hear,
yeah.
but of course your audience already knows what you're about, what you stand for, and what you're trying to get across to other people. And to write a book about a town that that has done what you've been talking about for so very long, it's going to resonate, isn't it? With your audience and with everybody else that's on board with this.
I do hope so. I wouldn't have, I have tried writing in the past, but children's stories. And when you're not known, obviously, it's extremely difficult to make any inroads because you've got to do all the promotion. And in a way, you could say the last 3 years in which I've been talking about the various things I do talk about on YouTube and the way that the audience has gathered has been promoting, I suppose, something at the end of it. If not just pure entertainment, or if not information, the interviews, my opinion pieces for what they're worth. But it's because there is an audience, it made sense to do something to encapsulate everything I've learned or and believe is true into a book. But I wouldn't probably have done this if I didn't know that at least I might be able to sell 1,000 copies of it, because that's a very silly gamble and a lot of money to go out if you end up with boxes that you have to store all the time.
And quite demotivating as well.
And yeah, and I did have a bit of that with the previous one. The kids book that I wrote, I didn't have as many printed. I think I had about 500, but I got rid of about 250 of them in a school that I was asked to go and do workshops. So I was selling those, and kids would come in with the cash, and that was going quite well. But I couldn't find a wider audience because it was not available in the shops. It was very difficult to get it into the shops,
Mm.
and I was trying to do that in between doing other things, Whereas this book, I thought, right, I'm going to spend a year to do this, get it out, make it good, and I have a ready audience who may or may not want to buy it. And of course, the choice is theirs. But there is, I think, something in the book that they will get, even though it is a fiction. The story is a fictitious story, except that it's full of what I'm calling truth bombs. And one of the beauties about writing fiction, of course, is that you can put both sides of the argument. So you can have somebody who's trying to tell you something that's going on, and then somebody, so let's say, I don't know, might be looking up and going, what are they? Oh, they're chemtrails. Oh, don't be ridiculous. Chemtrails don't exist. That's not chemtrails. That's contrails. So you can have that debate with two different characters. So it's not just me saying, oh, this is a fact, take it or leave it. You've got other characters being skeptical. But of course, most of the characters sort of win over the argument in the story. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the story that there is. But I try to put both sides of the argument in where possible.
So, Biggleswick, when you first mentioned Biggleswick on YouTube, I
Mm.
actually, along with I think quite a few other people, thought it was a place. I thought it was a genuine place. And I thought it must be near Biggleswade or somewhere out that way, and I've just not heard of it. But I think you probably a few people there, thought the same thing. Where did you pluck
Yes.
it from?
Well, I put together around 2000 a children's television pilot because my background, I did a children's television series in the 1990s that nobody's ever heard of, but it was on ITV for two series and was very successful, funnily enough, for the slot it was. And I was making further pilots, or suggestions or sizzle reels, as they call it. But we made an episode of something called The Dimwits, which was it was sort of Laurel and Hardy comedy slapstick type thing. And they worked for the council, which I had called Biggleswick Park Council. And so Biggleswick Park was this place. And so it stuck with me all these years. And so when I was doing an allegory on the channel, on the YouTube channel a couple of years ago about council tax and what would happen if people decided to set up their own council rather than the existing council, because there is something called the Monopolies Act. And I think most people had now proved that councils are registered entities, they're corporations, and a lot of people still think of them as public authorities, but they are registered on places like Dun and Bradstreet, and some of them have limited companies on Companies House, and that's provable and look upable. And I thought, well, if there's the Monopolies Act that says you cannot have a monopoly in business, that you need to have competition, well, what would happen if somebody else said, well, we'll be in competition and set up our own council? And I thought, well, where could that be? And this Biggleswick name came to mind from the long distance past of that. And so I just shortened it. Instead of Biggleswick Park, I just called it Biggleswick, which I thought was a lovely quintessential Middle England little market town type place. And it sort of stuck. And there is a place called Biggleswade. So it would be quite funny if people read the book, get confused, go to Biggleswade, which I think is in Cambridgeshire or very close, and start asking questions about the book, because the people in Biggleswade will have no notion what I'm talking about.
Am I right in thinking there that we spoke about this a little while ago? Is there a radio show they've taken the same name?
Well, I was about a month ago, somebody got in touch with me and said that the BBC were just promoting a radio program that was going to be appearing on Radio 4. Whether it has or not, I don't know. I never followed this up. But he said he'd heard a commercial for a new radio comedy series about a place called Biggleswick. And I thought, well, that's very interesting. But I can prove, going back to 2000, that I originated, well, Biggleswick Park, certainly, in my pilot, which is on YouTube under the Dimwits, which is a sort of comedy thing. Um, there is also some young guys who I think around 2010, some 10 years later, also came up with the name Biggleswick. Um, there's variations on that name out there. So, I haven't trademarked it or anything, and I don't think I wouldn't imagine that you would want to. Maybe you do, maybe one should. But I've been using that name since the turn of the millennia, so you know, I don't think anyone's got it before then.
Well, hopefully that will help because people might go onto the internet to search for, or find something out about the radio show, and your book's going to come up. So I'm kind of hoping that it really works well, and especially if it's a BBC program,
Well,
wouldn't it be nice to get one up then?
well, it would be very funny if people listen to the BBC radio version of something called Biggleswick, as you say, find my book and go, oh, this must be what it was based on. Buy the book, and of course, the people who watch the BBC and mainstream media will not necessarily be prepared for some of the truth that is being revealed in the
Hmm.
book. But if they associate the book with BBC stuff, they may go, oh, so this stuff is really true then. So who knows? Who knows? So I do wish it would happen. Yeah, it would be good. But I haven't looked that up. I'd forgotten about it, to be honest with you. So well done for remembering.
So the book itself, it's a journey, really, isn't
Hmm.
it? From people that are like-minded, and then from the bits that you've read out to me, because while you were writing it, initially you were sort of reading bits to me, and I got to know some of the characters, and it's to me it was a little bit like all of the information you've shared over the years on your channel has been compiled into a story.
Yes.
And I guess so you're not going out there and saying to people, this is what we should do. You're giving a fictitious story of suggesting that it's, I suppose, in a way, this is what's possible.
The thing is, I do think that if there is a small market town of about 20 to 30,000 people, um, you could influence those people slowly over a period of the book, I suppose, is over a period of 6 months, um, from the beginning rumblings of what the council is doing, which includes 5G towers going up. It includes sort of ULEZ type cameras, um, a lot of bailiffs turning up, evictions going on, the police heavy-handed. We've got the Great Grid upgrade happening, in which swathes of countryside is being swallowed up by solar panels, and a whole line of pylons, which a number of the characters who are landowners are not happy about. Um, and I do think that if if there was a method that awakened people to an alternative style of life without the hassle, people would do it. And so I was having to think, how do you manipulate, manipulate is perhaps a strong word, but how do you get people to look at life differently? And I think the answer is something we used to have that has been taken away from us, um, over time. And so there is an important element to this, which I think is the key to making it all happen. I don't want to say what that is because it's in the book,
Yeah.
and it would take away the fun. But once people understand what, no matter how many people sort of go, oh, I see that's a fraud, or that's been a lie, or there's the truth, how do you get that to connect with everybody else? And there is a way, and mostly it's been stamped out, but it could be still in existence in a small market town in the middle of nowhere. And if the small market town in the middle of nowhere with a small population were swayed that a better life could happen, and were, as would be likely, having YouTube channels talking about it, the rest of the world would be watching with envious eyes, as it were, to quote H.G. Wells, War of the Worlds. Um, and I think that people would then really want to know what it is they've done and see if they could do it in their own place. And so so that's going on. There's also, of course, it's an ensemble piece of different characters that we meet and get to know. There's a couple of central characters who are on personal journeys, and one thing that happens, without giving too much away, is at the beginning there's a lot of what people call common law, and there's a lot of that out there that people are following. But this one particular character, who's very into that, realizes that that's not necessarily the answer. It's part of the answer, but there's something far more important that can be evidenced and is evidenced in the book, um, that will actually make the council back off, and even the government. And so that is revealed in the book, as you read it. So, but whether people really understand that is another matter. It doesn't really matter because, again, it is entertainment and it's a story, and I want people to read it as a story and enjoy that. And the truth bombs are, yeah, they're part of it, and a very important part of it. But it isn't necessary to believe all of those if you don't want to. If you're just, want to enjoy a good story and see what happens in the end, there is that. So it took a while to sort of get the jigsaw of the story to fit together, and I hope that I've done a reasonable job.
Well, you've certainly put everything you've got into it because even the production of it is fantastic. To have a sleeve, which we don't see that often, and it's stitched as well. I think that's fantastic, and it's a thick book.
344 pages. Um, when I was writing it, it came out about 445, but when I reformatted it with the printers, I realized I could get more words on the page, but without losing the size of the text. I didn't want to make it small and still
Mm.
readable. And so now it's 344. It's about, I forget how many thousand words it is now. Something like 130, 120, 130,000 words. Something like, but the thing about writing fiction, and I've only dabbled in fiction. I've not tried to write any facts like what you do. Is that the thing about fiction is that it kind of has its own pace, and that pace varies. There's some faster bits and slow bits, and it has its own unfolding that you can't rush. And so I feel that you could slim it down a bit probably by cutting out unnecessary words and things. But overall, I think it was the right length. I wouldn't want it any thicker because I didn't want to put people off, but I wanted people also to have value for money. And then the other part about the book, because it's very anti-establishment and anti-corporations, and it very much supports small, independent, family-run businesses like what we used to have in ye oldie days,
Mm.
where a handshake, it was your word, your word was your bond, all of that sort of thing. That the day of utilities and contracts and updates on contracts and the world that we're in, where we continually feel that the policies the government and the council dish out are A, not asked for, and B, very anti-human. And I wanted to, because the book is like that, I wanted to not then put it onto some of these online retailers, particularly the one named after a river, because it makes it very convenient for people, and I appreciate that, and that is the problem. But I wanted to have this printed in England by an English company or a British company, and give the work and the money to them, and to have a little bit of control over the paper, the text, the binding, to me it was important to have a dust cover. I saw somebody else had done a book like that, and I said, "Where did you get that done?" And they told me, because it to me it's like an old-fashioned book. It is a bit 1950s in style, even though it is a modern story. But it is this sort of backwater village, and I wanted that to be reflected in the production of it as well. And I wanted people to actually, book readers like books, and places like Amazon and these other online places, they're great, and I've said I don't want to put it on there, and I won't put it on there certainly for a year or so. I may end up having to put it on once I've sort of extinguished everybody who wants a personalized hardback, what have you. But there's just something about a novel that is in the style of what we used to buy novels. And of course, I don't think any publisher would have touched the book.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that feeling. And
But
that's the problem.
it's not a slur on anybody who is using these companies, because again, it's that thing. I knew I had 270,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I do need to earn some money because I am demonetized. But it's not really about the money, and it's not really about the quantity of sales. I wanted to get this book. To me, I think the people who want and need to read and understand what's going on are the people who will buy it. So it
Mm.
doesn't matter if it's a small run, and then we do another run, and what have you. To me, it's a much more authentic thing. I'm not just trying to get out information. And I think, other people who are trying to get out information and wake people up or show them this, that, and the other, these other methods use the beast to pull its legs from underneath it. Absolutely, why not? But this, I just felt that to give the book its credibility, I had to use my own
Yeah,
principles. That's really all it is.
yeah. And
Probably shot myself in the foot in the long term, but
I don't
that's
think you have. I mean, it's like when I brought my first book out, I said to you several times that I would have loved to have been able to. I think you used Lulu, didn't you?
yes.
I would
Because
have been.
I use Lulu to give me the proof copies, because it's cheap. I mean, I could have used Amazon. It doesn't really matter. It was really cheaper to go to Lulu to print off a version, not worry about the cover and not worry about the print quality or anything, just so that I don't have to look at the screen, and then I could read
Yeah.
it and with a red pen, make changes and alter it on the different versions. Because that if I printed it out, the amount of ink and paper and
Mm,
time
mm.
would have been far more expensive. And with these sort of instant print on demand books, it's all there in one go. But and I could have sold them all on those platforms. But to me, again, it just comes back to having something that is just a little stage beyond that for the discernible reader. They may say
Mm.
it's not worth the paper it's printed on, and that everyone's entitled to their opinion, of course.
I don't think so. I mean, I've heard bits as you've read it out to me as you've been going along, and I think what perhaps helped was with me and what kept me, I suppose, really engaged was the fact that I know you and I can hear you. I could hear your vo voice, and I think anybody that follows your channel is going to hear it's you. And what would be even obviously more exciting would be later on an audio book because you were giving me some different accents when you were reading out different characters' parts and in it, and that I just thought that was fantastic. So, do you think you might do an
I
audio
would,
book?
yeah, I would love to do the audio book. It is time consuming. I did record
Mm,
the audio book of, I've recorded two audio books in the past, and it takes a hell of a long time. There's a lot of editing afterwards because you inevitably misread something, get the accent slightly off. have a frog in your throat, swallow or gulp at the wrong time, need to take a breath when you know in the middle of a sentence and it doesn't sound good. So you do take after take after take, and it does take a long time, but it would be good. And so I hope that by next year I can have an audio book done. Um, and I know a lot of people like to listen to audiobooks, but for me, I think people retain when they're more physically engaged. You know, so if you're using the eye to look at the words and using the brain to interpret those words, I think you take in more when you read than when you listen. Because people, load of people tell me they listen to audiobooks and then they fall asleep and they have to go back and try
Yeah.
and listen to it again. But if you're driving, it's a great way of passing the time. But you know, particularly if you've got other people in the car with you and you've got a 3 or 4 hour journey. So I will
And you
do
don't
it,
want to talk to them.
and you don't want to talk exactly. I will do it. The thing about it is, if you're doing it where there's other people listening, there'd be a lot of issues, I would imagine, where people would say, hold on a minute, I just want to talk about that because do you think that's true? And have you heard that before? And is he right on this, or is that just made up and what have you? But with somebody with headphones on, it would be fine.
It drives me nuts when people say they don't read,
Mm.
because once upon a time there was no alternative. And I just think,
Well, this people, I mean, you know, you look now, we have things like TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Reels. I don't know which one of the network thingies do Reels, but you hear all these things. And the short form, they argue that people's attention span has been reduced because, and therefore we have, you know, all these things are offered. I think people's attention spans are being reduced because they've put these things on, that people want things very quick. You only have to look at a 1950s film and see and feel the pace was so much slower. Now films are cut with so much more action. You wonder how quick could things be in the future? And everybody wants this speed, speed, speed. But actually, I think we all need to slow down a bit. And I'm including myself in this because I'm quite busy all the time. And you just think, no, no, you need to slow down and savor things.
mm,
Um, and everything's become so disposable, and life has become incredibly disposable now because people are on their phones. They barely notice their surroundings, and they're being all the time sucked into a artificial world that doesn't exist. And now with AI, you just can't trust anything anymore that you're looking at. And then there's the question, well, does that really matter? Because a lot of the stuff that you watch, even if it's true, mostly you can't do anything about it. And so now everything is being enhanced.
mm,
You can have your AI girlfriend that will do anything you require, or boyfriend, depending on what you are looking for. And people are having conversations with AI as if they're having conversation with God.
mm,
And it's very bizarre and it's very worrying because we're losing that reality, such as reality is, but that connection with real people. And as you say, one time people could sit down quietly and read and take in somebody else's thoughts and ideas and cogitate over them as they read in a long format situation. But now it's, you know, you look at a TikTok video that's grabbed your attention, that's finished. You've watched 20 others. You can't remember the first couple that you watched. It's just held your attention, and before you know it, an hour or two has disappeared, and you've got nothing to show for it.
mm. I was talking to Mark Devlin on Monday, and I said to him that we were talking about Kindle, and when he was on your show, he said that Kindle, kindling, book burning, fire, and how do you know with even a digital book, an ebook, if what you're reading is what the author submitted.
Mm.
And what do we end up with if we, because what I just have this feeling that at some point, certainly in my lifetime, all of this is going to be turned off. It might be a fake invasion. It might be a fake terrorist attack, and then what do we have? We don't print off our photographs anymore and put them in albums. We don't buy vinyl and play it on a record player. I mean, I'm saying all this. We actually do that, but and everything is on your phone. And what do you have then if they turned everything off tonight? There was no longer any internet, no cloud. Well, we're all right. We got a record player, we got vinyl, we got books, we got games. We do pretty much what we do when our kids come around with their partners. We do exactly the same thing as we do on a cold winter night. What do they do? What do the people do out there that are just looking for instant gratification by doom scrolling? What do they do?
Well, this is where I think they won't turn these things off. We were told that they were going to be power cuts, and then people were told the internet could be switched off. And yes, people go cold turkey for a bit, but very soon, because the men and women are very adaptable to situations, we would start to crawl back to those old things that we used to do, no matter how much they try and make out that we wouldn't. Because I think it's just human nature. If all those screens are switched off, basically, if the dope that is there is switched off, you're going to start going, I need interaction. Where can I get it from? I'll actually talk to somebody. So I don't think they will switch it off, but it will be much more controlled. And I think that's where AI comes in, so that you think you're being suckered in, or you think that you're watching a real world and important information and news and stories and on all those, and it's all control. And to a degree, we know that the newspapers has always been biased. We never really check the stories ourselves to know if they're true. We're learning stuff about things like 9/11 and other things in history and moon landings and things, and we're questioning those. Is that really true? Yet we were told absolutely this is verbatim true, and there's no. And now there's wriggle room there, and people are going, is this really the case? But I think it'll just get worse, and they can't. I don't think they can switch it off, because the moment they do, people will start piling into pubs. They'll start being independent. They'll start having to think again. And in a way, I wish they would, because
Hmm.
it would jerk people to have to go back to a non-digital analog world in which we had to use our hands, we had to use our brains, we had to communicate with our mouths rather than in text speak all the time, and with real people. So if they do switch it off, of course, they may switch it off, and then there's some cataclysm, which I know you've written about in your books, where they just wipe everybody out and leave perhaps a few babies around, who do not know what was in the past, and reset. I get that, but I can't. I mean, I can't see them switching it off, but for any length of time. They might, switch the electricity off just long enough to remind us they're in control. They might do the same with the
Hmm.
internet. Turn it off just long enough before we say, "Oh, to sod with that. I'm going to go and get a CB radio and 1919 for a copy. Is anybody out there?"
Wow. Yeah, that's a blast from the past. I'm guessing people still have them, but I've not seen that since my childhood.
Well, I know that there are people who are buying these things up and preparing themselves so that they can be as private as possible.
Hmm.
Um, because if you are on CB, yeah, people can listen in, but you've got to be within the transmitting area, and you've got to be when it happens.
Yeah.
Whereas digital stuff, every keyboard tapping out on your keyboard can be registered, logged, sent up, collected at different times of the day, and all of that. But with the old analog systems, if you're not there, if you're not tuned in listening to that conversation's gone. And they haven't got enough staff to do all of that. even with AI, I don't suppose, and then collate it and then work out is, prove it.
This is kind of a little bit like Telegram to me. People often say, "Are you on Telegram? Telegram's safer. We can share things on Telegram." And I've just got a funny feeling that Telegram's no different to anything else. It's all being compiled, monitored, logged, and they've got a list of who said what, and they've got a naughty list somewhere. A little bit like when Musk bought Twitter and it became X. All of a sudden, we've got freedom of speech, but you know, purchased by as someone that people shouldn't trust, that comes with quite a sinister sort of background. So I
I
don't
think
trust any of it.
anything that is on the digital, anything digital, obviously can be captured. So yeah, I don't think these platforms are safe at all. The safest thing is probably to walk in a park or
Mm,
over the hills and have a chat to somebody. But here, let me ask you this question.
mm,
So X used to be known as Twitter, as
mm.
everybody knows, and then it went to X. Now, I don't use it. I used to use Twitter years and years ago, but I don't use it. I've still got an account, I think, but I don't use it really. And so here's the question. They used to be called tweets, but now it's X. Are they still called tweets for Twitter, or are they X's for kisses? What are they called when you send out an X?
That's a very good point. I mean, I don't use it either. I'm the same as you. I was actually banned from Twitter, had my account closed. Um, and then when X started, I thought, okay, but I don't go on there. But I guess it's still tweets, isn't it? It must
Yes,
be. I've no idea,
but
but I'm
that's a bit
guessing it's
bizarre,
that.
isn't it? Because tweet
Mm,
is what a Twitter bird, little
mm,
blue bird would do is tweet out something. But now it's X. Are they
yeah,
kisses? That's what I'm asking. Are they
yeah,
little kisses coming out?
yeah. I don't. Yeah, I don't. I have enough trouble with YouTube and Facebook without everything else, and
No, I agree.
there's too many. People are saying, "Oh, you should do Patreon, you should do Rumble and Odyssey, and I don't know, UncleTomCobley.com." And I think, well, where do you draw the line with this? If you spend all of your time putting all your content onto various platforms, or putting it through one system that then shares it through the platforms, you've still got to engage with everybody. You wouldn't have any time to put any content together if you were constantly doing that.
Well, I mean, for me, it's the messages because
Yeah.
I prefer people to message me by email. And I know it's old-fashioned, and it was really the first type of messaging service, I suppose, apart from text, SMM texts. But email comes in one place and you can collate it and put it into folders and muck about with it. But if I have to have people commenting on a video and there's 300 or 400 comments, there's no way I'm going to see it. And then if that's the same on Instagram or Twitter and private messages here, there, and Facebook and all, I have not got time to go and search each of these to see which ones are genuine and relevant and not bots and everything else. And
Mm,
so I just kind of ignore all of that. I only really post on YouTube. And I just say, if you want to contact me, email me. Then at least there's a chance I'll see your email.
yeah. And then you get the odd person that doesn't just put one comment on the video. They'll put several comments, seven. I've seen it myself where there's 7 or 8 comments from the same person, and they're
Yes.
giving you the time. At this time, you said this, and I think that. And I'm thinking, my God, this is crazy. There's no way I can keep on top of this. So I tend to either give it a thumbs up, or if it's a question, or if it's someone saying, thank you, then I'll obviously say thanks for your support, or glad you enjoyed it. But some of them, you wouldn't be able to write a book and keep on top of every single comment at the same time. It's just not possible. And of course, you've now got the land. You're actually doing what you've been telling people to do: get out there, grow your own, and kind of get out of the system, which you're doing right now, aren't you? You've just
Yes.
got the keys, so to speak.
Absolutely. When I used to do something called the Bald Explorer, and
Mm,
I'd walk across the countryside looking at old churches, looking at landscape, looking at heritage. and nature. And at that time, it was right for me. Then I started to question what was going on in the world, and suddenly a new audience came in and was encouraging me to ask more questions, which I did. And of course, a lot of that was shock, horror. Oh, this is going on, this is going on, and the interview started. Then I realized that there's only so much that you really need to know, and it puts you in a state of fear, which isn't very nice. So I thought, well, what are the solutions to all of this? And so then I spent about a year talking about the solutions. And then I sort of realized that that's all very well, but unless you actually get up and do these solutions and change your lifestyle and perhaps not rely too much on the big supermarkets and the big corporations, and actually favor independent people, because when you see what's happened to the world, the uglification of Britain, the closing down of high streets, the cramming in of people into these effectively 15-minute cities, in these what I regard as concentration camps that people call new builds. They may as well be. In fact, I visited when I was doing the Bald Explorer. There's a place near Billingshurst in West Sussex that housed German prisoners of war during the war. It's now a housing estate, a modern housing estate. And you go around, and I looked at it, I said, apart from the bricks and the nice finishing and the tarmac and everything else, it still smacks of a concentration camp. It's a concentration of one type of person. They'd
Mm.
have to be relatively affluent, but there were mean windows, barely any parking, and quite big. They call executive homes for all these executives that seem to be around. Not very affordable and crammed in, concentrated. And really, there was no barbed wire anymore, but there was really only one way in and one way out. And I thought, that's really interesting. That stuck with me every time I started to see other of these new builds, all built in a field just out of town, concentrated together. And I thought, these are almost their own 15-minute cities in and of their
Yeah.
right, except they don't have a parade of shops. There's no pub, there's no centre, there's no park, there's no, and if there is, it's a token park, and perhaps one shop. But where are all the laundrettes and the libraries, the corner shops? Where is the pub? Where's the life and soul of
Mm.
these conurbations? It ain't there. And of course, in order to get into town and go to anywhere else, you've either got to have a car or you catch the bus. And so you can be very isolated in these places. Or nearby, there's one superstore, and that's it, one of the big known superstores.
Yeah.
And you're then almost forced to just buy the nutrient-free, vitamin deficient foods that's being available at really cheap prices, that is not necessarily as healthy as it ought to be, in these big corporate places. So yeah, I can't remember how I got into that now, but that was my answer.
Oh, I like the answer. It reminds me of a series that I watched a while back, and it was with Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. And it was on Netflix. Netflix is the only thing we have. We have Netflix and we have YouTube,
Oh
and
golly,
because obviously we haven't watched TV for years.
Netflix is TV.
I mean, we don't watch, we don't have a TV license. We don't watch the news. We don't see adverts. I don't ever see commercials, and I wouldn't support the BBC or any of those channels. But we still like to watch films and the odd sort of series now and again. And my
But I
wife's,
would argue that the Netflix is just as bad, because the series have got all the information that they want you, the mainstream stuff that they want you to understand is normal life,
mm,
within those TV. They're so subtle now,
yeah.
how they've normalized the unnormalness of life.
I think for me, it's escapism.
Right.
because I'm constantly, but because I'm constantly looking at information all the time, every now and again I want an evening where I just watch what, well, Frina says, just watch some shit, will you? Just put Netflix on and watch, I don't know, an old run of The In-Betweeners, or see if you can find Only Fools and Horses somewhere. Or, but this one was really interesting because what fascinated me with this series is it's called 1883, and it's about a farm that's owned by a family called the Duttons, and it goes back to them actually taking the land from the Native Americans and building a ranch on it. And they go into their little town, and it's your typical kind of town where it's, mud on the road, and it looks like it had a saloon bar there a few moments ago, and they were hanging people in the middle of the square kind of thing. Very much like that. And they had a brand new electrical store open, and they had a refrigerator outside, and they had a washing machine. And they stop, and the salesman says, "These things will revolutionize your life. You'll have so much more time on your hands." And one of the young lads, who's a cowboy essentially, said, "So what am I going to do with that time?
Mm.
If these things now do things for me and I've got more time on my hands, what do I do with that time?" And because I like to do things, so what am I going to do? And the other one turns around, one of the other brothers turns around and says, "Well, I tell you what you'll have to do, because you've got to rent these, you can't buy them. You've got to rent the refrigerator and the washing machine and the other bits and pieces. You'll have to work harder to give him the money to pay for these things that save you the time."
Yeah, exactly.
And that reminded me of,
Also, and also what went through my mind is what will you do with the time? You'll watch programs on Netflix.
well, it was 1883, but yes, but yeah, and it's obviously set in 1883, but yeah, but it just came to me while you were talking about the houses, because you'll have people that live on housing estates like that, or in streets like that, where next door has a conservatory or an extension, has a better holiday, a new car's delivered, and they want a better car. Well, now I'm going to have to get a better car than that. We're going to have a bigger extension, and they just owe more money, work
Mm,
harder for it, and they get to
mm.
this sort of pivotal moment where they can retire, and they're burnt out anyway.
Well, this is, I mean, the problem is, and this we do talk about this in the book, Biggleswick, is that people are chasing a dream that has been manufactured
Mm,
by corporations and them, whoever they are, so that people continually buy and upgrade and get the latest in something that is supposed to give you happiness. And we always see happiness as being something that is outside and materialistic. And of course, it's not. Happiness is definitely not something material. We know that because if it was, you'd be satisfied with the first thing you bought for the rest of your life. You buy a car and you go, wow. And then somebody shows you an up, you said, well, I don't need it. I'm very happy. Thank you very much. I'm happy driving my Morris Traveller from 1962 or whatever. And you wouldn't need all these other upgrade to the latest phone or the latest laptop or this, that, and the other. And they were all, given these sexy changes. But if you were really happy and thrilled with the thing, you would never upgrade. But we're not. And I don't think happiness has anything to do with materialistic ownership of anything, but it's what we're sold. We're told all the way through commercials, and I know you don't watch them, but loads of people are forced to watch them on YouTube and things like that. And we're all the time going, look at this, you want this, don't you? You would like this. And you go, oh, yeah, I would actually. Well, to get that, you've got to get on the treadmill an extra hour or another day, or, you don't have a holiday and you could have this thing. But next year, this thing will be obsolete and you can have this thing, which we're not going to tell you about yet, but we will tell you about, and you'll want that. And you'll work even harder to get this load of crap. Whereas happiness is so much more a thing within. It's you don't need material things to be
mm,
happy.
mm,
And I think once that spell is broken, then people are on a far better way to understanding what life is all about.
A friend of mine's just come back from Kenya, and while he was out there, they were on safari. They went and spent some time in a village where they have no phones. They don't have the internet. They have nothing at all. And he was showing me some photographs and a bit of footage. And he said, "Who's got it right? These people have nothing. They work all day. You know, they walk to get their water, and they were goat herders and so on." And he said he didn't meet one that didn't have a beaming, great smile on their face. They were so happy and content with life. I think we've just gone so far the other way that it's going to be very difficult for people, most people, to relinquish all of the tech that they don't need, but believe that they do. And going back to what I was saying earlier on with the photographs, I used to get really embarrassed, sort of in my teens, if a girl came round for tea, and my mum would get the photo album out, sorry, and say, "Oh, look, this is him when he's 2. This is him in the paddling pool with no clothes on at 18 months." I think, "Oh, well, this is so embarrassing." But now they're on your phone, and it's almost like once you've taken that photograph on your phone, you very rarely actually ever see it again. You might occasionally scroll through to show someone something, but we don't do that, do we? And I think we've forgotten so much that we need to
Uh,
re-remember.
Absolutely. I mean, as a kid, my dad used to take transparencies or slides, as they used to call them. And so you'd go on holiday or you'd go out for a day or something, he'd take a few pictures. You'd have 24 exposure film or 36, not infinite numbers of, oh, selfie here, 500 selfies and loads of
Mm,
this and that. So you're very selective on what you took. Then you waited a week for it to come back, and he would put up the screen, and we would sit there and look this massive screen with the projector, and we would be chuckling and remembering the day from perhaps 2 or 3 photographs, or the holiday from perhaps 24 photographs of the wherever it happened to be, the bay, the hotel, and a few pictures of us doing silly things. And you'd spend the evening looking at this, and it would be
mm,
fun. We've lost fun, and everything's become very utilitarian,
mm.
and very everyday. And so those precious moments are no longer things that are precious anymore, because that picture of the newborn baby or that birthday is in amongst a billion other pictures of boring crap where people have just taken pictures of their dinner and
Yeah, I
sent
know.
it
I've
to,
never understood that. I've never
uh,
understood that.
I'm in a pub. Here's the dinner I'm having. Well, great. I hope you enjoy it. No, no, look at the picture. I've just sent you. There's
I know.
chips and there's peas and there's fish fingers. Lovely. Great.
Yeah.
And that's all of that sort of nonsense is in amongst those moments of absolute preciousness that as you say, we don't print out. But that's the thing. People are stuck and have been hooked in to the tech and thinking they need it. They've got to have it. The latest this is slightly sharper, but it's slightly smaller to carry. And this is, it's got stabilization in, or you can translate something in 20 seconds, or you can talk to AI and get all the answers you ever want. You don't have to get up and go to the library and go down into the reference section and look up something. Now you can just Google it, which has become a verb. And it is a ridiculous thing that actually, like going back to the village, what really makes you happy? We've moved to the land. Everyone said to us, Richard, it's hard work. You won't be able to do it. A man of your age, 62, going onto the land, building things and growing things and digging and planting and chopping and all of the you won't be able to do it. And yes, it's hard work. It's very gratifying work. And you know what? We get knackered, we come back, and we are grinning. We're going, wow, what an amazing day. No tech was, well, maybe filmed some of it for the English Couple channel, but no tech was, didn't need to look at mobile phones, didn't need to sit in front of a screen, didn't need to read anything. We're going, how can we do this what have we got? We've only got hand tools. Right, we're going to dig this hole. We're going to plant that over there. We're going to shift this. We're going to strip the bark off this. We're going to use some willow in a hoop, and then we'll make a polytunnel out this.
Mm,
We we and we're going to use our hands and our intellect, and we are thriving doing that. And it's not going in and buying something off the shelf, ready-made, manufactured like everybody else, so utilitarian, plant it down in the ground, 10 minutes later it's broken, need to go and get it repaired, all of that. It's not stress. That's for us. I mean, it's not everybody's area of happiness, but you know, some people spend hours rebuilding traction engines, or you know, have a classic car in their garage and they're mucking about with it, and they're covered in something that's cold on the floor, and they're under, but they thrive. That's where happiness is. Happiness cannot be bought. It is something that is within you, that you're doing, that is creating for you individually
mm,
something amazing.
I totally agree. And you've been on the land actually stripping. I've watched you doing it, stripping the bark off tree. You're actually using to build framework for
Mm.
polytunnels and you're are you building a bit of a barn at the moment or a bit of a sort of
Workshop, a
a
little workshop.
workshop? Yeah, and you're actually using trees from your land to make everything.
Yes, pretty much all of it will be sourced from the land. There's some bits that won't be, but we talked to a local sawmill for some bits for the exterior. But and there's very few sawn bits of wood that have come from places like Wicks or B&Q, or you know,
Mm,
these ready-made places. Um, because it's just, we happen to have the wood, these trees, and we thought, well, they've got to be cleared anyway because we want the space. They were supposed to be harvested. They were Christmas trees that were planted in 1997 and never harvested. And so they're like 50 or 60 foot tall, straight, pretty much straight as a die, effectively pine. Some of them are like telegraph poles, and some of them are like lampposts. And yeah, so we've cut them, we've stripped them, and we've used different bits. I mean, the thing about trees is, of course, these sort of trees is they taper. So on a
yes, of
long
course.
length, nothing is straight. Things are wobbly and and tapered, and so it presents its own problem. But we jokingly call it wobbly town, or wonky town rather, because things are a bit wonky and they're not straight and true as you would have. But nature isn't straight lines. Nature is curves and wobbliness and undulating, and so we're embracing that and making it more natural and rustic. And of course, some people will just hate that because they're used to living in
Mm,
places where everything is straight and convenient
mm,
and utilitarian and all those sort of things. Whereas this would be very different, but we're happy with it and we're not worried about what other people think. And that's all that matters.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Going back to your book,
Yes.
the characters in there. Are they because obviously you've got the head of the council, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but Todd, I recall
Yes.
it
Todd Telling is the
Todd
mayor.
telling the mayor, yeah. Now, and then you've got the shopkeepers, you've got the couple I remember early on. I mean, this is going back some time where there was a lady who was going to have a home birth. You've got the young lad who's got his YouTube channel, the truth teller that comes to give a talk. All of these, and the farmer's hysterical. But are they based on people you've met or interviewed?
I was asked that the other day, actually, when I was at a talk that I was giving, and actually sold some of the books. Um, and they said, are all the characters based on yourself, or are they people that you know? And I said, actually, that's a really interesting question, because I haven't based any of the characters on anybody I know, or sometimes you could write uh, famous people as characters, you know, because you kind of know the tone of voice and what have you. And I haven't done that. there's probably elements of me in all of them, of course, because you're the writer and you can't help the way you think. Um, but I haven't, none of them have written, as you mentioned, there is a truth teller who visits, and his visit is a key element in the book, and I won't give away what happens. Um, and in a way, I wanted him to be a universal character because a lot of people in the truth freedom movement um, go to these talks where there are so-called authority type figures who come and tell you what they've discovered on the internet or what they have been practicing for many years, or they're sort of little gurus in their own domain. And so I didn't want him to be based on anybody, one specific recognizable guru by any means, and he isn't. Because he's actually on a learning curve himself, because he realizes he's got it all wrong all the time. But not all of it wrong, but he's got a major part that gets revealed in the story. And so to answer your question, they're not. I mean, you might say some of the characters are a bit shallow, or a bit cliche, and you could say that, of course, because it's an ensemble piece, and I didn't really have time to go into the nuances of every character. So, but that doesn't, I don't think that matters, because the story and what happens is more important
Mm,
than the characters. But some of the characters are amusing for sure.
mm.
Tony Smethurst, the farmer,
Yes.
I've given them a bit of a West Country accent, but people might not know that, and it don't matter. See, he sells raw milk, and he'll go to any lengths to tell people that raw milk is pretty good,
Mm,
whereas the government line is that it isn't. And so the mayor, he's trying to stop him from selling his raw milk because he don't understand. See, well, Tony Smethurst, he's been farming a long time, hasn't he? And he knows a thing or two. Although most people might think he's a bit dim, he ain't. You see, and that's the thing. A lot of country people know things that a lot of town people would think you're dim, but they know the names of trees and grasses and herbs and the animals and what's good for health and things like that, that most town people don't know because they're so busy stuck on their screens, and they go to places like the NHS, the public enemy number one, as I like to call it, and get medication, which is chemicals for their bodies that always has side effects. Whereas
mm.
these country folk, they kind of know things to keep you fit and healthy, but perhaps not so much these days. That's the sad part of it. But yeah,
Mm.
so to answer your question, the characters are a bit colourful and what have you, but they're not based on anybody that I specifically know.
Do you think right now that there's going to be a sequel? Because obviously I don't know what happens at the end of your book. I
They
don't
all
know if
die in
it's a...
horrible, agonizing death. Oh no, they don't. No, they don't.
But I don't
It's
know.
all a dream. It's all a dream. They all wake up. Oh, it was just a dream. No, that doesn't happen either.
But
Comet. The comet lands and kills them all. No, that doesn't happen either.
but I suppose you could, has it crossed your mind to bring out my eyes keep watering. What them 10 years on to revisit them and see how things have gone on and bring out a sequel to it.
Um, yes, I've been asked that a few times, and the thing about the book hopefully will leave the reader questioning a number of things about what is in the world, questioning what the solution that Biggleswick, the town, comes up with, or the people of Biggleswick,
Mm,
and indeed the council. Um, and I I like the characters, and there's certainly elements that you could write the characters going in another story, but to visit them in 10 years' time, I don't know about that. There is a sequel that there is another book to be written, um, which would be different, Um, and I'm just thinking how much to say about that, because I don't want some wag to suddenly go, oh yeah, I'll write that and pretend it's mine or whatever. I think there is, I mean, there's loads of this sort of thing. It's not unique, of course, to write truth bombs or to satire, if you like, a current situation within fiction, and of course people do that all the time. Um, I don't know that there's any other book that addresses the issues that I address.
Mm,
I know that there's one about, well, there's many books about a certain conspiracy, and it's explored through fiction. But this is really about everyday people living now, dealing with their own locality and government overreach in a way that I haven't seen anybody else write this sort
mm.
of stuff. And it's also entertaining. But yeah, you could visit it in 10 years' time and predict. Um, I think 10 years' time would be a fascinating time to think about, because I don't think
Yeah.
the McNasties will be here.
No, I
It
don't
might be
think
a very
so.
boring book. You do need conflict, and
Mm.
you do need an antagonist. And I think in 10 years' time, we're going to see a very different landscape. So it's going to go one way or the other, I think. Or we'll still be at the, within 10, 20 years' time. Um, because I don't think we can sustain where we're going at the moment. I think we're in the boiling pot, and we're either going to get out of it or we succumb. I think the frog has had enough being warmed up.
Yes, yes. I think so, but I do worry that there are quite a few frogs out there that don't realise they're slowly boiling.
Well, I guess not all frogs will leave.
No,
That's up to them.
no. So, if someone wants to buy a copy of your book at the moment, the best place to go is your website and then email you from that, or
Yes, I'd
you're
love to
setting up the
say
guts, aren't you, to the mechanism to be able to buy it online? You're
I,
looking at that at the moment.
I'd love to say it's available from all good bookshops, but I was going to be snarky then. So there are no good bookshops, but of course there are really. Yes, because it's published by myself, and it isn't online on these online retailers, and it's not in the shops, then the only place you can get it at the moment is myself. A few people have come forward and said, they would like to help distribute it, um, and put it on their website, which is great. I'm more than happy to do that. But because ultimately I've got to go and put the money up and have them printed and then distribute them to whomever, um, ultimate it comes down to me. But that presents its own problem, as I am now discovering that emails are coming in. I mean, I've only just launched it, so it's probably not going to be a problem in a month or two's time. But interest in the book, suddenly everybody's emailing me, can I have it, how much is it, where can I get it, blah 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 blah. And then I've got to physically, as you do, if people can have it signed, dedicated and all that, put it in an envelope, take it down to the post office, get the post on it and send it. It's a very personal task, isn't it? um
Yes.
but at the moment, I have to do that with every book. I can't, there's not a percentage that people can just buy online and get. But so I can only really do that kind of weekly. Once a week, I'll have to do my
Mm,
run down to the post office and say, here's a sack of books, please post them.
yeah. So, would you rather people emailed you?
I think at the moment it's easiest if, because they ultimately have to email me if they go. You can go to richardvobes.me, which it takes you to a web page which will find how to email me, and also you can show your interest in the book. But really and truly, yeah, you could just email me, richard@vobes.com. And as long as people put Biggleswick in the subject heading, I am likely to see it. And then I'll send you, by as quickly as I can, the information about how you buy the book.
Yeah.
Overseas sales, as you know, postage can be quite prohibitive, which is a shame. In the UK, or on mainland Britain, as I like to call it, because the UK doesn't really exist. It's not a
And
place at
on, I'm so glad you said on. We don't
all.
live in
We don't
anything.
we don't
We
live in anything,
we don't
no.
live in England, do we? Unless someone's got
Mm.
a, built themselves an underground bunker and they're several feet down. We live on
Yeah.
the land. We don't live
We live on
in.
the land.
We
Yes.
don't, yeah. And I often thought that's very strange, isn't it? What country do you live in? Well, I don't live in a country. I'm on top of it.
They're on top of it. This is it. This is the earth we live in.
Mm,
And countries themselves, that's a construct as well. It's
yeah.
just the boundary of, where we've agreed, certain people have agreed, we'll call this this.
Mm,
But anyway, on mainland Britain, it's about £5.40 postage um, to buy the book, something like that, on top of the 20 quid that it costs to buy the book. So I think I'm charging something like £26 all in for one. If you want two books, weirdly, the £5.40 doesn't change. It's just I need a slightly bigger jiffy bag.
mm,
So only goes up £1 to pay for the jiffy bag. Because the weight, it's funny how the post office work. The weight changes from whatever the beginning weight is to 2 kilograms. Well, I don't know how many
mm.
books you can get for 2 kilograms, but it's quite a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Two hardbacks of mine is 1.6 kilos.
Is it
Mm,
1.6?
mm.
So,
And I only know that because I've just literally, well, as you know, I told you earlier, I've just come back from the post
from
office
the post
myself.
office, yeah.
Yeah, I do the
Well, I
same
know
as
that
you
two
once a
books,
week.
two books didn't change it, but maybe three would. But anyway, we'll see how it goes, really.
Mm. Well, thank you for coming on. What I'll do is I'll put a link to your website and I'll also put your email in the description. And for me, I know I've got one wing in its way.
It's on its way. There's a thumbnail for you.
I love that. And the back. Can you show us the back as well?
Yes, the back has
You and the lovely.
me and the lovely Julia, and we're trying to sort of give the impression of represent the sort of, country town that it is.
Mm.
Um, and I'll just briefly read you what it says on the back here, as
Yeah.
just for fun. When an out of control government forces anti-human policies upon the people of a rural market town, the population decide to do something about it. Realizing the legal system is flawed and stacked against them, pointing to a disastrous and bleak future, they are determined to find an answer. Biggleswick could be your town, and the answer they find may be your salvation too. So that's the sort of teaser. We'll see how it goes.
Yes. Well, I'll certainly be as soon as mine arrives. I'll certainly be plastering that everywhere. But now,
Very kind. Very kind. Thank you so
crikey,
much.
Richard, it's the least I could do. Yeah, I've been plugging my books on your channel. I mean, crikey, and I've enjoyed the journey as well, from the idea to hearing the bits of chapters you've read out to me over the last 12 months, and it's fantastic to see it here now. And I've got no doubt that first delivery isn't going to last long.
No, hope not. I
No.
need the space.
Well, thanks once again, Rich, for coming on, and well,
Thank you.
I hope
Thank you so
everybody's
much.
enjoyed this and they know where to go to get a copy.
Yeah, that's very kind of you. Thanks
A
ever so much,
pleasure.
Guy.
Thank you. Take care and all the best for now.
Bye bye.
Bye.